Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationships and it's by user BF and Best Friends. I, 33 female, have slept with both of my best friends and my boyfriend, 36 male of 4 years, is uncomfortable with that. I'll be breaking this up into sections to keep it all in chronological order. So, part 1, the background. Let me start right off with the problem. My 2 best friends in the world are male and I've slept with both of them. It's not as bad as it seems though. It's not like I have feelings for either of them. They're both childhood friends whom I've known for years and years, so I love them with all of my heart. But the thought of being in a relationship with either of them is unfathomable. One of them, we'll call him Rob, is married now, but we had a brief relationship senior year of high school. We broke up after less than a year for several reasons. I wanted to travel abroad for university, he wanted kids and I didn't, and his mother didn't think I was a good fit for him. I know, but we still remained friends. The other, we'll call him John, is a bit more complicated. I would never date him because he has serious issues and it's not so much the issues that stop me from dating him, but the fact that he adamantly refuses any kind of help or therapy for them. John had some major childhood trauma that he's big time repressing, affecting his ability to have a relationship. He's a bit of a womanizer. After I got back from university abroad, I was 23 and all alone and I needed a place to live. His parents had moved out to a beach condo and let John live in their old house, and he offered me one of the spare bedrooms for very low rent, so we lived together for a while without incident. I dated a guy for like 2 years and John had a constant stream of women in and out of his bedroom, but we discovered a system that worked for us and became closer than ever. The problem was, one night, about a year after I broke up with my ex, we hung out in the house alone and got drunk together. We were both super horny and hooked up and we had amazing sex, like really mind-blowing. I don't know if it was because I was drunk or because I'd only slept with 2 people in my life who were both subpar. Rob and I were virgins and we only had sex like twice before we broke up, and one of the main reasons I split with my other ex was sexual incompatibility. Still, either way, it was great and we didn't want to stop, so we kept hooking up for about 8 months. At that point, one of his old exes came back into his life and he realized he had feelings for her. We tried to stop hooking up, but quite frankly, we have no self-control. Then I realized that I was 29 and had a steady job and there was no reason I shouldn't move out, so I left. We had one last night of sex the day before I moved out and agreed to never talk about it again. Part 2, the boyfriend. We'll call him Sam. He had been a long-time co-worker of mine. We started working together when I got my job at 26. He was 29 and getting divorced. He told me all about it as it was happening. He and his wife got married way too fast. She had just broken up with her ex and 5 months into dating, Sam discovered she was pregnant with her ex's child. She pressured Sam into marriage because she didn't want to be a single mom and he agreed. You can imagine why this didn't work out. Anyway, Sam and I became best friends in the workplace. He would tell me stories about his divorce and I would tell him embarrassing childhood stories about Rob and John. Oh yeah, didn't I mention that we all work for the same company? Ron and John are in different departments, but it's a pretty close-knit company. So he knew I had dated Rob in high school, but he never knew about me hooking up with John. When I told him I was moving out of John's house, he asked me why. And I just said that we were getting older and it was time for me to get my own place, which was absolutely true. And that just happened to be the day he confessed his longtime feelings for me and we began dating. Part 3, the problem. About half a year ago, we decided to move in together. His lease was ending and I owned my house, so he moved into my place. He sometimes works really late nights, and on occasion, I'll have Rob or John over to keep me company when he does. Last night, he was meant to be working until 11 p.m. John was here and we were hanging out in the living room. It was about 10:30 p.m. and we were drinking a bit and talking kind of loudly. John mentioned that his girlfriend was always jealous or worried that he and I had feelings for each other. I said that was silly and that just because 2 people have great sex doesn't mean they're in love. As I said, we were talking pretty loudly, so I guess Sam came into at some point and heard me say that. I didn't even hear him unlock the front door, but he stormed into the living room and confronted me, asking when John and I had had sex. He looked equal parts disappointed and angry. John left because he didn't want to be involved in our argument, and I explained everything. I told him John and I used to hook up when we lived together, and that was part of why I moved out of his place, because it wasn't healthy for us to have that kind of relationship. It had been 4 years and we rarely ever spoke about it, and it hadn't affected our friendship at all. Sam now tells me he's uncomfortable with the fact that I have slept with both of the people I consider my best friends in the world. He's also uncomfortable with the fact that just a few days before he and I got together, I had sex with John. He says it taints our entire relationship because I lied to him about it. I think he's being a bit puritanical about it. Of course I have a sexual past, and why does it matter if it was only a few days before since it didn't mean anything? It's not like I had feelings for John, and we always used protection and frequently got tested, and I told Sam that. So it's not like he's concerned about the health risks, he's just jealous. Now he wants me to hang out with John less, and he doesn't feel comfortable with us drinking together at all. He also insists I should make new friends and separate myself a bit from Rob and John, because it's weird that both of the people I'm closest with are people who have seen me naked. I think he's being entirely unreasonable. John and I are both in relationships and we have no feelings for each other whatsoever. The fact that we hooked up with each other for a while is something we want to leave in the past, and to bring Rob into it is just ridiculous. It's been 15 years since we had anything to do with each other romantically, and he's now married with kids. I think Sam just wants to punish me or something because he's weirdly jealous. I honestly don't know what to make of this situation. Well, OP, in order for you to know what to make about this situation, why don't you reverse the roles and see how comfortable you would feel about that? I mean, you come home from working late and you hear in the living room your boyfriend drunk with one of his female best friends, and they were talking about how awesome the sex they had was and that her boyfriend shouldn't worry about it because they didn't have any feelings. And when you ask about it, because this is the first time that you would be hearing these kind of news, you get hit with the truck that is reality, that they did have a friends with benefit relationship and that they had a lot of amazing sex, as you, I don't know why, wrote that so many times in the post. Was it really that important to fit into this story? Because honestly, it doesn't add anything. Anyways, you found out that the last time that they had this amazing sex, it was just a few days before you guys started your relationship. And then you remember that when you asked him why he was moving out of his friend's house, he's told you that it was because, it was the right time. He never said anything about the 8 months friends with benefits relationship, so he lied by omission. Now, with all that being said, do you still think he's being entirely unreasonable, weirdly jealous, and a bit puritanical? Seriously, OP, if I was a 36-year-old man who already went through a divorce, this whole thing to me would seem like unnecessary drama, and the lying by omission would be enough for me to really think about this whole thing. But if you still don't want to see it this way, OP, here's another suggestion. He's got feelings, you're trying to reason him out of his feelings. You're not gonna win. Because even if he drops it and says he's comfortable, he's not, and he's gonna start resenting you. So OP, him asking you to spend less time, a lot less time with John, doesn't seem crazy to me, and it seems like the right thing to do. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? What would you do if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Ruffle Lobster says, let's write this from his perspective. Hey everyone, I'm in a bit of a situation with my girlfriend. She has 2 best friends who hang out all the time. Now, normally I am not jealous, but this situation just keeps throwing up red flags. I will skip the long introduction and get right to the situation currently at hand. I occasionally work late, my job can be demanding, and my girlfriend doesn't really like to be home alone. I understand that, and she normally calls over one of her 2 friends. I always thought it was nice that they found time to hang out because it can be hard to keep friends like this during a relationship. However, I came home last night and before I shut the door, I heard a drunken conversation. My girlfriend's friend stated that his girlfriend was jealous of them, and my girlfriend mentioned how even though they have great sex, his girlfriend didn't need to worry. Needless to say, I rushed in and tried to figure out what the hell was going on. I questioned them, and apparently they have a past together, which I did not know about. Not only that, but apparently it stopped barely before we got together. Everything about this situation makes me feel like I'm not getting the whole truth. Why didn't she tell me she had sex with this man who is constantly over? Is this the type of thing they talk about on a normal basis? If she had told me before, I imagine it would have been less of a shock, but I keep thinking that she hid this from me because she knew she was doing something wrong or that I might not like it. I'm pretty furious right now. She could be cheating on me every time he is over, and I would have no clue because I've always assumed she was telling me the whole truth. What do? I don't want to throw this away, but I can't help but think there is something else going on. As for me, OP, I think you effed up. You lied by omission and spent time with the person you lied about. Of course he feels the relationship is tainted. He has had 100% trust in you and your actions, and now he is seeing that for 4 years he has been lied to. It retroactively makes him reassess every single situation where you and John were alone together. At a minimum, you need to scale back for the time being and stop spending so much late night alone time with him. Le Lunatic says, "Oh God, please don't tell me you actually said just because two people have great sex doesn't mean they need to be weird around each other out loud. You keep going on and on how great John was in bed. Do you not see how that would make your boyfriend uncomfortable?" And Dinosaur Train says, "It doesn't matter if you think he's unreasonable. He's given you his terms. You are free to choose your friends or you are free to respect his boundaries. But you cannot both possess your cake and eat it too. You are actually being kinda scummy trying to make this all about how he's unreasonable. That shows that you have little to no regard for his feelings. You know what to do, you just don't want to. Either respect his wishes and scale back, especially with John, or get the F out because he deserves to be with someone who respects his boundaries." Additional information from OP's comments. My mistake, I worded it wrong. John did not cheat with me. There was no cheating. He met up with his ex after many years of not seeing her, and as they became friends again, he told me he might want to pursue something with her. So we had one last night of sex before he started anything with her. And I wasn't with Sam at the time. He had a crush on me, we were good friends, and there was some flirting, but he made it obvious he was cynical about relationships because of his divorce. A relationship with him was not even on my mind because I didn't think it would ever happen, so all parties were single when the hookup or friends with benefits situation occurred. Anyway, after a night of distance and some perspective from Reddit, I see how this would be uncomfortable from Sam's point of view. He's just never been even remotely jealous before, and I was so caught up in the fact that he was bringing Rob into this. I think some part of me was just hoping that since Sam likes both of the guys and is friends with them too, and we've been together for so long, that it wouldn't be a big deal to him, but I understand why it is. At a minimum, I need to stop drinking with John and inviting him over late at night, and I realized that calling Sam unreasonable was an extreme overreaction on my part. Alright, well, the community called out OP, gave her a lot of perspective, and she understood it, so she's going to fix this. Now, the update that we have is 1 year after the original post, so let's move on with that to see how this story ends, but of course before that, here's another one of my playlists for you to enjoy after this video. Now let's move on with the update. I know it's over a year later and probably no one remembers this post, but I will never forget it because hearing from all of you Redditors changed my life and saved my relationship. So if there's anyone here who read my last post, you deserve to know you were right. After reading all the comments on the last post, I realized that Sam was not overreacting at all and would have been more than reasonable to break up with me because of this. I showed him my post and we had a long discussion in which I promised I would never hang out with Rob or John alone again. Side note, huge thanks to the Redditor who wrote the post from my husband's point of view. It really got to me. So I told him I loved him so much and he was the most important person in my life and I would do anything to regain his trust, even if he wanted me to stop seeing my friends altogether. He said that wasn't necessary and he didn't mind if I saw them occasionally, just he would prefer if it were in public and not late at night or with alcohol involved. He felt sorry for being judgmental of me, but I told him that he was completely right and my relationship with John was inappropriate. I just needed something like this to make me see it. Thankfully, we moved past it fairly quickly and are actually now married. It was a courthouse wedding on our 5th anniversary. Very lovely. So now here's the part where everyone was right. After my conversation with Sam, John and I drifted apart a bit. I still hung out with Rob and his wife, but John broke up with his girlfriend and I no longer felt comfortable being alone with him. So he and I would hang out with Rob, but that happened maybe once or twice a month, whereas before we would see each other a few times a week. Then, last Thanksgiving, when John and I announced we were getting married, John actually left dinner early. He replied shortly to all of my messages, didn't return my calls, and barely spoke to me. I didn't see him again until my wedding in December. You can guess where this is going. Thankfully, nothing happened at the wedding, although that would have made for a great screenplay, as someone in a comment on the last post mentioned. It was a small ceremony, just our families, a couple of Sam's friends, Rob, his wife, and John. We went out to a restaurant for a reception dinner, and John seemed withdrawn the entire time. I guessed he was not happy that I was married. Since Sam and I returned from our honeymoon in January, I have seen John maybe twice, once for Easter and again for Rob's birthday. I tried to say hi at work, but he always makes an excuse and walks away. He didn't even come to Sam's birthday last month. After that, I decided that I would stop trying to reach out to him and he could talk to me when he was ready. And last week, he was finally ready. It just so happens that Sam was offered an opportunity to travel abroad for 8 months with his job, with me invited to come along. We decided to accept it, and I suppose John saw Sam's Facebook post about it because the next day John sought me out at work. He asked me if I was really leaving the country for 8 months, and when I said yes, he asked why I couldn't stay. I asked why he cared if I stayed when we hadn't really spoken in months. He said, "I'm sorry, never mind," and walked away, but at that point it was clearer than ever what was really going on. Anyway, Sam and I are leaving in September. His job will be waiting for him when he gets back, but I have decided to find a new one. I'm glad that I'll be out of the country for a bit. I feel really stupid not to realize that John could have feelings for me. There's never been anything there on my end, so I just assumed it was the same for him, since we could be roommates and friends with benefits. It seems obvious now. Everyone who commented on my last post was spot on about our relationship not being normal, and I am so glad that Reddit could see what I wasn't. I am so deliriously happy in love with my husband. I don't even want to think about what could have happened had I not posted here. So thank you all again, and I hope this update is some way satisfying. I do hope someday we can get over this and can be friends again, but I'm not holding my breath. It's probably healthier this way. Thank you so much. Smiley face. Alright OP, well this is a definite win. Good for you. Happy update. It does suck that John has those scars, but he doesn't want to work through them, and it's not your responsibility, OP. So here's wishing you and your husband all the best in the future. Thank you so much for sharing, OP, and take care. Now, how about we finish off this video with an awesome mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user xgrunt24. If I don't like it, I can find another job? Okay. I think this qualifies. I worked at a small shop serving an electrical apprenticeship. The shop manager and I had a few run-ins and I assumed he disliked me as much as I disliked him. I refused to do a job and told me he didn't pay me enough. It was at the stockyards and I was expected to put on a set of waters, crawl down into a raw fat reclamation tank and replace the submersible pump. Wasn't going to happen. Another time, he wanted me to lie to a customer to make an issue they were having sound like it wasn't our fault. I refused and told him if he wanted to lie about it, he was going to have to drive out of the job site and do it himself. He told me to keep my mouth shut and did come out. I think the only reason he didn't fire me is I was by far one of the most efficient and versatile employees. This fact had me questioning how much I was getting out of this apprenticeship and was passively looking around for another shop to apprentice at. My wage scale was structured and I got regular raises, bringing me closer to my journeyman's level over my time as an apprentice. So I had to find someone that would sign up to complete my apprenticeship as well as want to hire me. One of our better journeymen had gone to another shop and had introduced me to the owners. We had talked about what it would take to get me to move. Things were progressing, but nothing was committed to at that point. Cue Malicious Compliance. It's my evaluation and races time. My manager calls me up to the conference room and explains that due to my performance and the shop being in a slow period, he was not going to give me the 25 cents an hour raise as my contract said, but was going to give me $1 more an hour once I became a journeyman. We argued, and I told him if I can't trust you for a quarter, why would I believe the dollar? The argument ended with him telling me if I don't like it, I can always quit. Oh really? I picked up the conference room phone on the table in front of us and called the shop I had been talking with. I asked the owner if I brought my tools over today, would I have a job? After a quick and uncomfortable discussion with his partner, he said yes. I informed my manager I resigned effective now. I loaded my tools, punched out, and went straight to work that afternoon. Well, OP, you were absolutely right. You called him out on his dollar for a quarter thing, which sounded like BS to me as well. And he told you that you could quit, which you did, so good for you, OP, and thank you so much for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.